Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. So for this explainer, we're going to use a pretty provocative book by Odin Zeus McGaffer to look under the hood of belief systems. We're going to explore their internal architecture, how they're built to stay coherent and maintain authority. And that matters, well, it matters pretty much everywhere that information and belief bump up against each other.
So, the text we're digging into is Does God Get Diarrhea? By Odin Zeus McGaffer. It's a really sharp critique of how certain belief systems handle knowledge. The whole point of the book is to take apart what it calls a closed logical system. Basically, a system that plays by its own set of internal rules, totally separate from any outside evidence.
All right, here's the game plan. We'll look at the book itself, then we'll break down its core logic, see how it protects itself, wrap it all up in a single metaphor, and then talk about what it all means. Okay, let's jump right in.
To really get the architecture of the system the book is describing, we have to start with its foundation, its core principle. It's all built on a very specific, functional definition of just one single concept.
What McGaffer's getting at here is that faith isn't just about trust. In this analysis, it's the core operating principle of the whole system. This idea basically unplugs belief from any need for outside verifiable proof, which makes the entire system completely self-contained. It references itself.
So, once you have that core logic in place, how does the system keep itself going? Well, the book lays out several key mechanisms that, according to the author's framework, act like a defense system to protect that logic from any and all external challenges.
The first pattern the book points to is a kind of structural constraint. Inside this system, the simple act of questioning the basic ideas isn't seen as the healthy part of learning. Nope, it's framed as a violation. You're basically breaking a rule.
And this quote from the book just nails how that works. A request for evidence, something that's totally normal in other fields, gets completely redefined. It's no longer a tool for discovery, it's a social offense. And that is a really effective way to shut down any direct evidence-based challenges before they can even get off the ground.
Now, this next pattern is a fascinating one. It's a kind of feedback loop. So let's say you find evidence that seems to totally contradict the system. The author uses the example of dinosaur fossils in a young Earth model. You'd think that would be a problem, right? But it's not. Instead, that evidence gets reinterpreted as a mechanism designed to strengthen belief. It becomes a test of faith. So the very thing that should weaken the system actually ends up making it stronger. This table here illustrates the core critique of the book perfectly. It's comparing two different ways of getting to the truth. As the author lays it out, one method lets the evidence shape the conclusion. The other method, though, starts with the conclusion already decided and then just filters all the evidence to make sure it fits. And if anyone on the outside wants to review the work, well, they're just being intolerant.
Okay, let's pull back for a second and look at a powerful metaphor that helps tie all these pieces together. It helps us see this entire structure as one big, functional system.
We can think of the belief system described in the book as an operating system for your mind. First, you install the core program. That's the foundational text, the one source of truth. Then, it runs on a faith protocol, which requires you to believe, even without evidence. Third, a firewall kicks in. Any skepticism or outside data gets flagged as either an attack or a test. And finally, the system executes its commands, the rules that guide your behavior and, wouldn't you know it, keep the system itself stable and running.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does understanding this kind of structure actually matter out there in the real world?
Well, it gives us a framework. It helps us see the architecture that's hiding just beneath the surface. And not just when we're talking about religion, but in any ideological or social system that has to defend its core beliefs from a world that's just full of conflicting information. It's a blueprint for how these systems manage authority, deal with contradiction, and keep a group's identity solid.
And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. Looking beyond the book's specific topic, what are the invisible frameworks, the operating systems, that might just be running in the background of our own thinking, quietly shaping our own perceptions of the world?
This project is free and publicly accessible. If you'd like to support the time, tools, and research behind Crisis in Perception, you can become a supporter on Patreon. For a longer audio-based analysis of this topic, see the deep dive linked in the description. If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.